Welcome to the Darkstream. VoxDay, voxday.blogspot.com, and, of course, Infogalactic News. Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to continue a little bit with the theme that I had been talking about last night with regards to killing the media. And we were talking about how the right, the alt-right, the alt-light, the new right, the hard right, whatever you want to call it. Basically, the alternative to the conservative media and the mainstream media. How we are growing up, how we are developing, how we are working together, and how we could be working together more effectively. But before I go any further, I want to say thank you to everybody. SJW is Always Lie, Taking Down the Thought Police, has been out for 20 months now. We're getting pretty close to releasing the sequel, SJW is Always Double Down. And it is still, today, the #1 bestseller in political philosophy. I don't think it is right at the moment, but it was earlier today. And so I really appreciate that so many people are reading it, buying it, and more importantly, making effective use of it. You know, unfortunately today, we saw an example of somebody who probably should have read it. He's the producer of or the developer of a game that was attacked yesterday by literally who? Our old friend who inspired Gamergate originally. And he was attacked because of some statements he made talking about his opposition to feminism. And his publisher turned around and made a big SJW-infused statement about equality and feminism and how they would only work with people who support equality and feminism and all that sort of thing. And unfortunately, the guy did not, nobody had told the guy not to apologize, not to back down. So one guess, what's the first thing that happened after he apologizes? There's immediately a bunch of tweets from SJWs talking about how his apology is not good enough. Of course not. It never is. Because to an SJW, an apology is a confession of guilt. It is not going to end things. An apology demanded by SJWs is not going to end things any more than a confession is going to end things when you're dealing with the police. I don't know how to make it any more clear than that. Do not apologize. Do not let the words, "I am sorry," leave your lips if SJWs are demanding an apology for something. I don't care. I don't care if you did it and you've got, your hands are covered with blood and DNA and that sort of thing. You do not apologize to SJWs or in response to SJW pressure under any circumstances. None whatsoever. So, anyhow, but what I want to talk about tonight is builders versus surfers. Builders versus surfers. We're talking about people within the larger movement. We're talking about anyone who is not a figure of the mainstream conservative movement, who's recognizable, who has a following. Maybe they've got books, maybe they've got a website, maybe they've got a lot of Twitter followers, maybe they've got a YouTube channel. It doesn't matter. I'm talking about all of them. And so, what we can divide people into two categories. And what really inspired me in this regard was something that Mike Cernovich told me once. I think he may have actually, it may actually be from this book. his MAGA mindset. But it's either in here or something that he said to me once. And what he said was that wake up, actually maybe it was a blog post actually, but he said, wake up every day and ask yourself, who am I going to help today? And apparently he got it from Victor Pride. So again, just building and passing it on. Now it doesn't have to be a big thing. Today I was thinking about it. I was thinking, okay, who am I going to help today? And the first person I thought of was my friend and author, Nick Cole. Nick Cole is the author who was kicked out of HarperCollins. He had his book canceled, excellent book, canceled. In fact, I've got it right here. We actually published it in hardcover. Control, Alt, Revolt. HarperCollins got rid of this because of a single joke. The aliens have some questions about humanity because they can't believe that humans abort their young. They think it's just insane. Or the AI, sorry, not the aliens, the AI. They can't get their hands around the logic. They can't get their artificial heads around the logic of it. So anyhow, I hadn't known Nick about it. It just came out when I heard about it. I contacted him, blogged about it, offered him my support. We got along. I read the book. I loved it, and said, "Hey, we want to sign you up." And now we're working with him. We actually publish The End of the World as We Know It, and this book also won the Dragon Award for best post-apocalyptic novel. He's a good writer, and more importantly, he is a staunch right-wing author. He's more traditional conservative. He's more tradcon than alt-right, but he's a fighter. He's a good guy, a reliable guy, a smart guy. And so I thought, I was just reading a book that he had written. It's not one that we publish. It's a book called Galaxy's Edge, Legionnaire, and he publishes it with a guy named Jason Anspach. And I had just finished it last night, and it's good. I mean, it is straight up military science fiction. I mean, it is just boom, 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 combat throughout. It's very good. And so, what I did, it's just a small thing. When we're talking about building and helping people, we're not talking about anything big and grand, but I put that book up there on my reading list. Now, it's not a big deal. If you go to my blog, you can always see what my current fiction reading is, my current nonfiction reading, my current editing, and what I'm working on myself. I try to keep it updated. Sometimes I'm a little lax, but anyhow, right now I'm actually caught up mostly in reading this book about the myth of Al-Andalus and the myth of Muslim Spain. So what I did is, even though I was done with the book, I put it in there as the book that I'm currently reading because I know that it gets more attention that way. I've been told by a number of authors that when I put a book up there that's my current reading, they sometimes see, sales of 5 or 10 copies a day. It's just a small thing. It's a tiny thing. But it was the thought, what can I do to help? Then the other thing was, I thought Tara McCarthy. Tara and I had some back and forth conversation about a little misunderstanding with regards to my view of women in the nationalist movement. And, as we got to talking, I realized she would probably be a really good author. So I said, hey, are you interested in writing a book? And, if you are, I'd like to help you with that, and Castelli would be interested in publishing you. So I got in touch with her. I didn't have time to talk to her today because I was working on Martin's new book. But we arranged it so that we can get together and talk tomorrow, just about some of the possibilities. I don't know if she'll do it. I don't know if she wants to. I don't know exactly what she has in mind. But the point is that those were my two little things today that I could do that might help somebody in the movement. Sometimes there are big things, and sometimes there are little things. Sometimes it's just it's just putting somebody in contact. Maybe it's letting Stefan know about a author that I think would be a really good guest for him. And so, all of these little things, if you do this kind of thing every day. Now you say, okay, well that's fine, Vox, but you have a platform, people pay attention to you and that sort of thing. What can I do? I'm just somebody who's on Gab or on Twitter and I've got 100 followers. What can I do? It's very simple. Find an author that you support every day and write one review. It takes you on Amazon. Write one review for one author and pick another author and that you've read and retweet a link to their book. Think about it. There are 25,000 people or so that visit Vox Populi every day. Imagine what a difference it would make if even 10% of those people wrote a single review of Mike Cernovich's new book. Here's a good one. Ivan Throne is doing great work. You know what Ivan Throne's doing with all the stuff with the violent solutions and dealing with Antifa and that sort of thing. If you support what he's doing, and you don't have the money to buy his book, or maybe you're not interested in it, you don't read nonfiction, but tweet about it. If you've read it, I know how many people have bought that book. Not even 1% of them have posted a review on Amazon. That's something you can do. Something else you can do. Hey, that's great. Somebody just said they reviewed Rocky Mountain. It's actually Rocky Mountain Retribution, and that's great. These things make a huge difference because of the Amazon algorithm. The more reviews you have, the more that Amazon realizes that people are paying attention to the book, and the more they're willing to have it pop up when people are looking at other books. It makes a huge difference. And so, so it doesn't matter whether you are someone with a big following who gets a lot of attention, or if you're somebody who is, just has a social media account and 10 followers. You can make a difference because collectively, all of you, all of the 270,000 followers of Mike Cernovich are vastly more powerful and influential than I am, than Mike is, than Stefan is, because it is you and the force multiplier that you represent that give Mike or me or Stefan or Paul Joseph Watson our influence. But here's the thing. Not all of us are particularly good about helping others. Now, just to be clear, I am not condemning those that I would describe as surfers. Now, what's a surfer? A surfer is somebody who is involved in the movement, who is a public figure of the movement, but there's someone who really doesn't do much for the movement other than maximize their own career, maximize their own potential. There is nothing wrong with this, okay? I am not criticizing it. I am praising those who go beyond that. And I am encouraging those who don't go beyond that, who are doing nothing wrong, but I'm encouraging them to start going beyond that. Not just because it's good for other people, not just because it is good for the movement, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it is good for you. This is true. Brian just said, conservatives are unwilling to help each other, big reason why they lose. This is absolutely true. You know, John Delarose, who's a indie science fiction writer, he had a nice piece today over on his site, and he was talking about how people in the old school science fiction community basically don't help each other. They tend to play a game of like doing writing workshops and all that sort of thing, and everybody's trying to get as much as they can and give as little as possible. And so, you know, there are people, like, for example, I'm not afraid to name names. You know, we're not accusing anybody of anything. We're not criticizing anyone here. We're just observing the way things are. Okay? So who's the biggest surfer of them all? You know, who had the most influence in the right, probably one of the most important figures of the right for the last 15 years? You know, I love her. I think she's great. But the fact is, she does virtually nothing to help anybody else. And that's Ann Coulter. Yeah, good good eye there, two of you. You know, Ann is basically, you know, interested in writing and selling her books. She makes some speeches and that sort of thing. But she has never, ever, to the best of my knowledge, and keep in mind, I was the only other person of her generation who was nationally syndicated along with her at Universal Press Syndicate. And she never made any effort whatsoever to help my column get established. Okay? I wasn't angry about this. I wasn't upset about this. I actually told the editor at Universal Press Syndicate that if they wanted to make my column successful, they really needed to package it as a twofer with Ann. Because the problem that it had was they really only had space for one quote-unquote right-wing columnist per week in their papers. And if they're going to choose between the two of us, of course they're going to choose Ann. You know, she was the one who's on Fox News. You know, and so, again, I'm not criticizing, but I'm pointing out that Ann's influence now is extremely limited by the fact that she has no personal connections to any of the people who have come up behind her. You know, people don't have her back because they don't know her. Now, actually, a lot of you might think Milo. This is not correct. I can tell you from personal experience that Milo has been willing to put himself out and take a amount of personal criticism from people, you know, from well-connected people in the media and on the right on behalf of other people. And so, now I'm not saying that it's a skill of his, you know. I don't think anyone's surprised to know that, you know, Milo can be a little bit self-centered and whatnot. That's fine. But he does have a grasp on this. He does do what he can. Maybe, you know, does he do absolutely as much as he can? Probably not. Probably none of us do. You know, the only person that I know, who is really good about about building others all the time is Stefan Molyneux. Stefan is the role model in this regard. Let me tell you how amazing Stefan is about building things up. I'm a fairly regular guest on his show. We've actually got this Dostoevsky discussion in the can that he hasn't released yet because more time relevant stuff keeps popping up that they do release shows on. Let's face it, the Crime and Punishment has been around for a while. It's not really going to matter whether people see the discussion today, tomorrow, or next year. But here's the interesting thing: is he knows I've got a book coming out. So what does he do? I get an email from his producer saying, "Hey, we know you've got a book coming out. Let us know when it's coming out so that we can schedule a show with you the week that it comes out." This is Stefan. Okay? Now, this is kind of amazing because I'm not only the author, I'm the publisher, and Stefan is thinking more about my book launch than I am. Okay? That is somebody to emulate. That is somebody who is actively looking to help build things. And Stefan also helps, we help each other. He has a novel that he's written. I've been editing it. I would say it's borderline brilliant. It's very, very good. He could publish it himself. He could easily publish it himself, but he wants to help Castalia House. So he said, "Hey, would you like to publish this book of mine? I think it could do well." That's how you do it. Now, on the other hand, you've got people more like, what has Tommy Lahren done for anyone? Nothing that I've seen. What has Paul Joseph Watson done for anyone? Nothing that I'm aware of. These are people who tend to be more focused on their own careers. Now, that doesn't mean that they are not playing very important roles. That does not mean that they are not very effective in what they do. But by remaining isolated, they reduce their possible influence, and they reduce their reach and their effectiveness. Now, obviously, if you're someone like Ann Coulter, maybe you don't care. Maybe you've published 9, 10, New York Times bestsellers. You don't really need anything. Maybe you don't care, and that's fine. That is totally legitimate. It is their right. It is an option. Nobody needs to feel any absolute obligation to do this. But I think that it is wise to do it. I think that it is right to do it, and I think it is extremely effective to do it. The New Atheists were kind of my model in this regard. A lot of people don't realize, but Daniel Dennett and Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris are not best friends. They barely knew each other for the most part. They don't hang out. They probably, if it weren't for actual official things they've had to do, they probably hang out less than Mike Cernovich and I do. We've never, except for the Gamergate thing, we've only gotten together socially. So, but they managed to create this whole, New Atheist, Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse image. And Wired helped them do it by doing a photo shoot where they're all taken, took dramatic black and white pictures, posing in the same way and then posing together and all that kind of crap. They created an effective little movement that, it eventually fell apart because none of them had really much to say on the subject. They each wrote, one book. I think Sam Harris wrote 3, but they each wrote like one book on the subject, and then that was really all they had to say. And of course, I critiqued all their books in my book, The Irrational Atheist, in case you're looking for a laugh sometime, because frankly, their arguments were very, very bad. But again, it's a force multiplying thing. We are, to paraphrase the left, we actually are stronger together. No, Sam Harris never had any interest in debating me at all. He ended up, when he asked for an intelligent Trump supporter, and the 2 people who were most often mentioned and recommended to him were Scott Adams and myself, and so he decided that he wanted to have Scott Adams come on. I don't know if, I guess Scott is going to do it. I didn't know what's up. But anyhow, the thing is that to build, you need to look beyond yourself. You need to look beyond always focusing on your stuff, on your YouTube channel, on your blog, on your Twitter followers, and that sort of thing. But like I said, so I would encourage you guys to push us towards that. When you see somebody who is building, cheer them on, support what they're doing, encourage them. Again, do not criticize, do not get on the back, do not say anything negative to those who don't. This has to be a positive thing. That's what motivates people to do it. And yes, it can be difficult. It can be difficult to see people succeeding on a level that you're not able to hit. It's very, very easy for me in a lot of areas because I'm not interested. If somebody came to me and said, if 60 Minutes had come to me and said, hey, we want to do a report on someone from the alt-right, I would have been the first to say, go talk to Mike. I don't want to talk to you. And actually I literally did that with the BBC. They had contacted me and I said, don't talk to me, go talk to Mike. I don't like dealing with the media. I have no interest in talking to the media. And so I have, for me, when I see, whoever, Tommy or Lauren Southern or whoever on TV, I'm very happy that they're there and not me. Okay? But that's easy for me. It's not as easy for somebody who wants to do that, for somebody who really wants to, become a talking head. I think that would be hard. For me, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to understand why, somebody else's book is selling so much better than one of mine, or maybe another Castelia House book that I personally think is much better. It can be difficult to, you're looking at it going, I do not get it. Why? Why on earth would anyone prefer to, read a Ben Shapiro book? It's ludicrous. But that's the way it is. And it doesn't change the fact that it's still the right thing to do. It doesn't it's not going to bother me. Like we had talked to Milo about possibly publishing his book. When it was released, the second time it was released on pre-order, I mean, I basically found out the day before that we weren't going to be publishing it. They're gonna do their dangerous books thing, and they had said, hey, we understand if you don't want to, if you don't want to mention it or something, no hard feelings, blah blah. And I said, look, it's ridiculous. Of course I'm going to. Yes, I would have preferred for us to publish it, but I understand why you wanted to do it differently. And of course, the first thing I did that day was, put up a link on my blog to help boost the pre-orders. That's the right thing to do. It's not all about today. It's not all about what we can do immediately. It's about reliably and continually building towards the future. And I'm not a leader. Mike's not a leader. We are just, intellectual figures who are helping people think through these ideas, many of which are new to them. I didn't write. There's like 27 translations of the 16 points. Okay? I did 2 of them. I didn't ask for any of them. I had nothing to do with it. That is entirely organic. And that's how these things grow. And so what I'd like you guys to do is to try to adopt that principle for yourselves, because some of you are going to become the people who are going to replace us in 5 years, in 10 years. I have seen people, I remember when Ben Shapiro was the, 10-year-old prodigy on WorldNet Daily, writing, basically parroting Republican boilerplate, and very few people were reading his column. Now, he has, in terms of the media, he's completely surpassed me. He's on TV all the time. He's got all the books and whatever, and that's fine. He's obviously not an ally of ours, being pretty out there on the cuck front. But the point is that the same thing's going to happen on the alt-right. You've got the pretty girls coming up who are going to be elevated quickly, because that's the way it works. You've got some brilliant young guys coming up. I like linking to the Z-Man. I linked to the Z-Man today, his piece on the baby boomers. There's a number of guys that I think are very good writers. I think are possibly more able to communicate with the average person than I am. And being younger, they have, being in the United States, they have a much better grasp of what's going on at the grassroots level among the younger generations than I do. And I expect them to become popular. I expect them to build up huge followings, and that's great. That's what should happen. If I can offer some advice, if I can publish some of them, if I can help out somehow, that's great. That's what I'm going to try to do. But you guys need to understand that you are where you are the pool that next generation of leaders is going to come from. And so, anyhow, in the meantime, work on adopting that principle of trying to help somebody once a day. If it's writing 1 review a day, if it's doing 1 tweet a day that brings somebody, brings attention to someone else. Another good person, Scooter Downey. He's doing some nice stuff on the video side. Hartiste, you barely need to mention. I link to him all the time. But the point is that look beyond yourself. Look to see who you can help, look to see who you can use as a role model. And that will not only help yourself, but will help others. And through the principle of enlightened self-interest, you will make yourself, other worthy people, and the alt-right movement stronger. So, anyhow, that's all I have for tonight. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for making SJW's Always Live #1 in political philosophy again. Have a good evening.